Oh, one show is just not enough. Doubleheader Tuesdays is a thing here at Golden Days, and I've got the beautiful and talented Sophia Jones joining me next. Sophia, are you ready to recap Media Day and tell the audience about the WNBA playoffs? Are you good to go? Are you ramped?
I am. I'm ready.
Let's do it. This is the Golden Days.
They always find something to nitpick, and that's because there's expectations for us to win. It was a pretty crazy night.
Let's go. In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Come on and break me off. 'Cause I get what I want and I like what I see. If you got
Let's do this. Media Day coverage. Golden Days. Thank you for joining the Golden Days. Myself and Sophia Jones are your hosts every Tuesday, although we're going to change that day at some point. Keep following us and stay tuned for that information. You can follow Sophia Jones on Twitter at Sophia Jones _2. You can follow me there at Surf Journalist. I'm also over on Threads and Instagram at Dog Wild. Today's episode, before we get going, is brought to you by Bet Online, the official sponsor of Golden Days, and they just re-upped through next year. So thank you to the official sponsor again of the Golden Days, and that's Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online is every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. And if you think you know your stuff, get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. And when the game's over, kick back, relax, build yourself that casino ambiance, light them up if you got them, pour yourself a stiff one, kick back, put the feet up, and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. Sophia, how the hell are you doing? And are you getting pumped for basketball? First preseason games this Saturday. How are you?
I'm really excited to be able, especially with all this media day ramp up. I'm excited. You talk about basketball, the WNBA playoffs are going on as well, which those have been extremely entertaining to watch. So it's just a very good point in the year for basketball fans.
It is. Oh my God. I am so happy that it's just around the corner. Finally, some really good stuff to talk about. And Media Day have you ever been to a Media Day, by the way? For folks who are unfamiliar, and I'm sorry to put you on the spotlight, your father is the voice of the NBA, Mark Jones. So I'm sure you've experienced a lot of really cool things in the NBA, but did your dad, or maybe with someone else, you're also a former D1 college player, Sophia. Have you ever been to a Media Day before and witnessed the spectacle?
I have. I've been to some. I grew up in Miami, so I've been to some Miami Heat Media Days, as well as I've seen a lot of Mountain West and our own San Jose State produced Media Days, and it's a really fun atmosphere. I mean, honestly, sometimes as a player, it can be a little exhausting because cameras are just in your face. You're taking so many pictures, especially as girls. We're constantly just making sure our hair and makeup are right as well. But no, Media Day is always fun.
I feel like the men were feeling it as well yesterday. Like, I'd never seen before makeup being applied to the players for these photo shoots, but like they were applying these toners and these creams on the shoulders of the players, all over their bodies, and like Moses Moody was just like, you could tell he was so relieved to wipe this stuff off of them. Some of the players looked absolutely exhausted. It was for the Warriors at least, it was an earlier than usual Media Day. It started at 9 a.m. Basketball players are not early birds. They're typically, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but they're not on the norm, generally speaking, early risers. And so for a 9 a.m. Media Day, everyone there was like crust in the eyes, half awake, just wanted to get through it. And especially for them, like, they knew once it was over, they're getting on a flight to Hawaii. The Media Day you went to, who were some of the marquee players for the Miami Heat when you went to that one?
I was young, so I cannot remember, but I do think it was in that the Dwayne Wade era.
Ooh, oh, you
Yes.
went to a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, those are some special teams. Absolutely. Well,
Very.
Media Day is a spectacle. And again, this one was much more low key and quiet than in years past. It was, and I don't know if the early hours were part of it. I don't know if it was by design because the team is much more focused on business and the task at hand. But it's an interesting scene. All the players go into the interview room at Chase Center, where they're hit with like 5 to 10 questions from the media. The players are also all in uniform because they're going around and like there's like 5 or 6 huge booths that are set up on the court at Chase Center, and they're going into these booths for photo sessions, for for recording promos. For example, like if you're watching a Warriors game on TV and you suddenly see like right before they go back to action, you see a shot of a player saying more Warriors basketball is coming up next, and then maybe they're doing something fun like dribbling a basketball, going up for a dunk. Like all that stuff is recorded and produced on Media Day. And so for schlubs like me who gain access to these things, we get to, talk to the players, interview them, and ask interesting questions and hopefully not embarrass ourselves and hopefully not annoy them. Brandin Podziemski, for example, I had a chance to sit down and converse with him for like 10 minutes. He was just waiting his turn for this to get into one of these booths. And I don't know if he was going to do an interview, but he sat down on his chair right next to me. And the one thing that stuck out to me with Podziemski, great kid. Like by the time my conversation with him was up, and it was just a random convo. It wasn't scheduled. It was literally just all of a sudden I'm looking next to him, I'm like, oh, hey, Brandon. And I started just asking him questions and back and forth. And he's very conversational. He's got a personality. He's a good kid. I get the appeal. I was also reminded he's just a kid. I mean, he's only 21 years old. He's still the youngest player on the Warriors. That's something that he himself kept repeating as being something he's surprised by, that he is the youngest player on the Warriors squad. That's Media Day. It's just a lot of schmoozing and hobnobbing. Anything you want to add to that before we start playing some sound clips, Sophia?
Just like you said, you talk about being able to run into Podziemski in between booths and activations. That's exactly how Media Day goes for players. You kind of just get paraded around. This booth is just going to be for your headshot. This one's going to be for our hype video. This one, we're going to ask you to name as many pizza toppings in 30 seconds as possible to go up against a fan during the game. So stuff like that.
Yeah, that gimmicky
very
stuff
hectic.
That gimmicky stuff is also included in there. Well, I'm going to start the clips with a question I actually got in myself. And so I'm in an interview room. Jonathan Kuminga shows up, still has the blonde hair. And a couple years ago, I asked Klay Thompson a question. It wasn't during Media Day, but I think it was like right before the team was going to the playoffs, and it was tense. It was like Klay was stressed out. I could tell he was really annoyed by all the questioning regarding the team. It was just all these basketball questions, like 3-point shooting, wins, losses. So I decided to ask him about Rocco, right? And this clip went viral because Klay's face lit up. He, at the end of the question, he, actually acknowledged it and said, great question. And so I'm in the interview room with Kuminga, and I obviously thought of the fact that Rocco's gone. And I also remembered that Jonathan Kuminga himself has 2 dogs. I'm a dog lover. I have an English Bulldog of my own. So I decided, given I knew any question I would ask Kuminga that had nothing to do with his dogs was a question he'd already heard, everyone else had already heard him answer. So I wanted to mix things up. And I asked Jonathan Kuminga about his puppies, Dior and Prada. And he named the 2 dogs appropriately because Jonathan Kuminga is really into fashion and that scene. So Dior and Prada are the name of the 2 pups. And I asked Jonathan Kuminga about them and to tell the world about them. So here's what Jonathan Kuminga had to say. Jonathan, when Klay Thompson left, Rocco also left. And I started to be lighthearted here, but most people may not be aware that you own 2 French Bulldogs. Mm-hmm. What is your relationship with them? How much do you love them? And just tell the world about these 2 pups.
The way I got them, it's very unique way because that's around when I was in the G League, and we were in Walnut Creek. I was very lonely. It was quarantine time, and you couldn't have your teammate, you couldn't hang out with your teammates sometimes because of COVID. And I just choose to get one of them, and that one was kind of lonely too sometimes, so I had to get another one. And just having them around kind of helped. It helped me so much to just having something to, every time after work, practice or games, go back to and just looking or playing with them. And I love them so much, you know. I don't know. I love my puppies. I cannot even give them up to anybody. I love having them.
That's Jonathan Kuminga talking about Prada and Dior. Sophia, your thoughts on Kuminga and his puppies?
I think it's just a really cute story, especially how he mentioned during quarantine, where he just got them so he would feel a little less lonely, and just to think about his journey getting them when he was in the G League, kind of to where he is now, and his journey including them. It definitely kind of gives you a little bit insight into the humanity of some of these players.
Absolutely right. And very well said. And if you're watching this on YouTube, that's a picture of Prada and Dior, Jonathan Kuminga's 2 English Bulldogs. And with Rocco out of the picture, there is now a void in terms of canine adoration on the Warriors. And so hopefully we start seeing some more sightings of these 2 puppies. It's adorable. Real fast in the chat, Mohammed Alavi pouring some hate on for Kuminga, saying Kuminga is not an all-star level talent. Well, duh, he's still 21 years old. He will be, though. But then when you see the next comment from Mohammed, I think the reason why he's saying that is because he's more focused on Stephen Curry getting some help. He wants Kuminga traded, and Mohammed advocating for Jimmy Butler or LeBron James at the deadline. I could not disagree more. I think Kuminga is going to have a terrific season this year. He is a talent. And Die Post asking real fast, who is Rocco? Rocco is Klay Thompson's English Bulldog. So and that's not a bad question. It's okay. Not everyone is aware of this stuff. So yeah, Klay Thompson has an adorable English Bulldog that he took with him to the Dallas Mavericks. Any thoughts on Mohammed's comments about Kuminga, Sophia?
Kuminga's ceiling is however he decides to show up each and every single night. There's definitely room on this team for him to be able to play at an all-star level and be that help that Steph Curry needs. It's really just going to be decided up to him. I saw the comment about how he tends to play a little bit of iso ball, but that is also something that comes along with development, where he can learn to make those quicker decisions. He has such a quick first step. He's extremely explosive and athletic. So if he just learns to, once he's in the paint, make those quick decisions, either score or pass out, and just embrace that playmaker role, I really do see him being able to become an all-star.
And the ISO ball thing, first of all, I don't agree that that's Kuminga's game, that he has to be an ISO player. With that said, ISO players are typically that way because they know how to get buckets, because they're damn good at it. And the Warriors do need someone to give them easy buckets when times are tense, when the pressure is high. It's not the worst thing in the world to have a player on your team who can play ISO when needed. Don't forget Kevin Durant was an ISO player, and he helped carry them to a championship 2 straight years. If Kuminga can be the type of ISO player that plays that style when needed, but is otherwise in the team system of movement and a pass-heavy scheme, there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. Any final thoughts before we move on from Kuminga, Sophia?
Just like you said, there's a difference between needing to go ISO, maybe because you have the ball in your hands at the end of the shot clock, and at that point you want to make sure that you're the type of player that can get you a bucket, but also being the type of player where you fit well into offensive schemes and can score within the flow of the game.
Absolutely. And again, when Sophia talks basketball, folks, she played D1 basketball. She grew up around basketball. So listen carefully to what she says. I honestly am. I absorb every word you say, Sophia. So thank you for that. Moving on. Let me ask you this, Sophia. Do you want to hear from the tried and true first, like the Stephen Currys, the Draymond Greens, or do you want to hear from new Warriors first, like Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton?
Let's hear from Stephen Dre first.
Love it. So let's start off. Stephen Curry was at the podium, and the one clip I have from him, do Do I have a clip from him? You know what? I don't have a clip queued up from Steph. Let's go with Draymond. Draymond said some interesting things. I have a couple clips queued up from him. I apologize for that. Draymond Green talked about a lot of stuff yesterday. He talked about the team being the depth of the team being vitally important, made comparisons to the 2022 version and how that team had Otto Porter Jr., Bielitsa, that team signed Gary Payton II. And he found similarities between that and the depth of this team, which included newly signed Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton, Buddy Hield. So Draymond said a lot of stuff, and we're going to get right to it. So let's hear from the Warriors power forward, the future Hall of Famer himself, Draymond Green.
We're going to sign a Buddy Hield. We're going to sign a DeAnthony Melton. We're going to sign a Kyle Anderson and just pluck away and chip away at it. I thought that was incredible. I thought it shows who this organization is, and it is a testament to Mike Dunleavy and who he is as a basketball mind, a guy who's grown up in the NBA his whole life. And like I said, you know, in most situations, you see someone panic and they make a move that set them back for 5 years. You know, and you set one move in this league, it can pretty much set you up for how the next 10 years of your organization is going to go. And, you know, sometimes the best deal you can make is to not make a deal. And I think, you know, we did a great job in going out and getting pieces that's going to help this team grow, that will allow young guys opportunity to grow, and yet keeping the future of this organization as bright as it's ever been.
There you go. That was Draymond. Sophia, your thoughts on Draymond talking about how one deal can just ruin your team, and he's happy with the squad as is.
He's right into what he said was just, you don't want to make the wrong decision because you're in a panic mode. In that same interview, he also talked about, he mentioned the Boston Celtics kind of as that replica of what the Warriors can try to strive after in the players like the Derek Whites, the Al Horfords, the Drew Holidays that aren't necessarily all-star level, but they're key role players. And I feel like with some of the new additions that the Warriors were able to get between Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton, Buddy Hield, if they're really able to play into their role to their best abilities, then they can definitely have a bright future. However, I do think one thing that he omitted was, with that, he compared the Celtics roster a little bit, is the fact that they were led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, two all-star players, which right now the Warriors have Steph Curry, so they would need that other all-star caliber player in order to be as successful as hopefully a Celtics team.
And Mohamed Alavi, who's dominating the chat today with some very strong takes, and which is a solid contribution because it gives us content to talk about. He writes, it's almost inevitable that Draymond will face another suspension this season, shaking my head so easily by the reporter. And that leads to a question about whether or not Draymond's going to be reliable for the team this season. That was actually asked of him. And let's hear what Draymond had to say about that. Thank you for the setup, Mohamed.
Maybe your teammates.
Why do they worry about me? I am a successful black man in America doing incredibly well. What's the worry?
They worry
about
about you.
There are way more people in this world to worry about than me. That's for sure.
But we're here now. So
we're all here. I don't think you should worry about me.
Okay.
I'm doing pretty well. If you would have told me when I was 13 years old in Saginaw, Michigan, without a pot to piss in, that you'd be sitting here and somebody would say they're worried about you, I would have probably told them they were out of their mind. I'd be sitting here and they'd be worried about me.
Well, they're worried from themselves too. They want to know.
They don't feed.
They know the team needs
so
you.
Why are they worried?
Because they know the team needs you.
But they don't feed
and
them.
They don't know if
their
you're going to be
families
here.
Doing this. I'm here. I've been here for 13 years now.
If you're going to be here every night.
Been here pretty much every night for 13 years. Very much so. We all have. Look, Kevon Looney played 82 games 2 years in a row, and everybody was celebrating. We all miss games. I'm always here. And suspensions, the guideline of getting suspended is something that's in place because it's a possibility. So I don't know what would change, but I don't get the question. I think my mindset has helped us do some great things. It's pretty cool. So it's all about how you spin it. I love how you try and spin it, but it ain't my spin to it, player. So yeah, it's good.
That he was. I did not watch that before. He was very combative. Someone in the chat asked who the reporter was. I don't know. I'm trying to think. That voice didn't sound familiar. Did it sound familiar to you, Sophia?
No.
I don't know who that was. I saw where he was looking, the direction he was looking. I'm trying to remember who the media were sitting there, but there were also, that room was packed. It could have been a reporter standing. I don't think it was Rick Bucher. It didn't sound like him because I only said that because he was looking that direction. I don't know who the reporter was, but what were your thoughts on that? Draymond was very combative there. He did not appreciate the line of questioning regarding his durability and availability, being defiant about his role, mentioning the fact that he's been a part of championship teams. Great content. What are your thoughts, Sophia?
It did seem like he was a little irritated at the question. And to a certain extent, I feel like he can be because, like he said, he has proven himself that his mindset has been able to achieve great things for the team. However, on the other hand, there also is the fact that you have to acknowledge that you did get suspended last year and it caused some controversy that hurt the team.
Absolutely right. Sorry, I was trying to do some research there on who exactly that conversation was with. That was wild. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there for that interview, so I don't know who the back and forth was with. But again, that was some interesting stuff. Kyle Anderson's name came up, and as one of the new members of the Warriors, and I think someone in the chat said that every year that Kyle Anderson has played, here right here from Kingory, writes that every team Kyle Anderson has been on has made it to the playoffs. I don't know if that means every season, but regardless, let's hear from new Warrior Kyle Anderson. My buddy Larry Kruger, who I hosted a program with a short while ago. And again, we're going to be recording each week now that basketball is finally back in the swing of things. He calls Kyle Anderson slow-mo. He's not that impressed with the signing. I disagree. I think this was a fantastic pickup. I don't know if it's a difference-making pickup, but it was a good signing. I liked it a lot. And here is new Warrior, Kyle Anderson.
That last topic, how helpful is Draymond in that respect in terms of letting people know where you obviously have not played with him yet, but you've seen him. But what he does, what is special about
you could see him, you definitely see him in like a Kevin Garnett, like Bill Russell role, where like, he's always talking on defense, he's always pointing guys in the right direction. Tim Duncan was like that, and that was extremely helpful for everyone else. It's like a trickle-down effect. It's contagious. You get other guys talking, you get other guys helping guys out. So that's big time. That's a key to Rudy Gobert in the Minnesota situation last year. He's very similar in that way too. So when you have someone like that, you're more than likely you're going to have a good defense.
Ooh, we brought up the Rudy Gobert situation. That was Kyle talking about playing with Draymond Green. Your thoughts, Sophia?
I very much do like how he spoke about Draymond as being a defensive floor general, because he is. When you're in the back line of that defense, you see everything. So it's your job to be able to point out where screens are coming, who's moving off ball. And for Draymond's ability on the court to do that is extremely important to this team, especially to get a little bit of the defensive resurgence that the Warriors need. And for Kyle Anderson to have been able to see that kind of already shows how high IQ of a player he is.
Absolutely. He is a very high IQ basketball player. He's a solid player. I know he can't shoot, but you don't just need shooting in life. He plays D. He's the do everything guy. He can even handle the ball. bringing it up the court. So that was new Warrior Kyle Anderson. Speaking of new Warriors, DeAnthony Melton, to me, is pivotal to this team's success this coming season. Free agent acquisition. The team spent the entirety of the mid-level exception to acquire him. And let's hear from new Golden State Warriors point guard DeAnthony Melton.
DeAnthony over here. When people talk about you, one of the first things that tends to come up is defense. And is that your mentality? Is defense first, and the other stuff will come, or what's your mentality there?
That's definitely my mentality. I love defense. I love playing defense. I love getting steals. I love getting stops. I feel like defense wins championships too. So that's always been my mantra, and I mean that's who I am.
DeAnthony.
That's who he is. There you go. And by the way, that helped. That I'm still trying to figure out who that person was conversing with Draymond Green, having that back and forth. So the person who just asked that question was Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle. I'm puzzling this together. So that means the person Draymond was having that discussion with was on the inside of Sam. All right, I'll figure this out because I'm so curious. Your thoughts, by the way, on sorry to be talking to myself here. So your thoughts, Sophia, on DeAnthony Melton and the defensive tenacity he's going to bring. I don't think that's going to hurt things. That's for sure.
It's definitely not going to hurt things. The Warriors desperately need that. For me, as well as being a very defensive-minded point guard, I love hearing that, and especially for as free-flowing as the Warriors' offense is, the more stops you can get on defense and the quicker you can get out into transition, the less that they're playing into half court, and the more it'll just end up benefiting the Warriors to be able to put more points on the board. So I love hearing that defensive mindset. Again, kind of going back to the resurgence of the top Warriors defensive years.
The Warriors need to improve on defense. They were middle of the pack last year. Let's hope DeAnthony Melton, especially with a perimeter defense, massive weakness. So let's hope DeAnthony Melton helps in that department. Bruce Morrow in the chat, by the way, mentioning that the reporter that Draymond was having the back and forth with was a San Francisco Chronicle columnist, Scott Osler. But I don't remember seeing Scott there. But I also can't deny that's true simply because I didn't see Scott at that moment. But maybe it was him. Yeah. So Bruce, I don't know how you know that. If you can confirm, please let me know. But because I never saw Scott in that media room, but he could have been there. He could have slipped out. I don't know. That's a possibility. So that was DeAnthony Melton, one player. And on the earlier show today with Larry Krueger, his name came up, and we had a great discussion about Andrew Wiggins in terms of his rebounding numbers toward the end of the 2022 season when they won the championship. He was posting some huge clips when it comes to grabbing boards, and that culminated with 8.8 rebounds per game in the NBA Finals. The problem is the Warriors since then have been waiting for him to replicate that, when in reality, that was an anomaly. That is not the player Wiggins is. He's someone who is a wing. He's a guard, naturally speaking. His career has been in the 4.5 range for rebounds per game. And regardless, first of all, Sophia, what are your thoughts on that? The fact that the Wiggins, for a brief moment, turned into a power forward, essentially. Like, he was a menace in the inside, and we've never really seen that since. I think it's fair to expect him to repeat that. I don't think it's fair for the team to expect that again. I would like to see Wiggins as a shooting guard. Steve Kerr did say that he wants Wiggins to put up 6 threes per game. Your thoughts on Wiggins and the expectations of him?
Yeah, unfortunately, Wiggins was kind of dealing with a lot of personal matters throughout this past year. And hopefully it's something where with the time he's had the ability to heal himself a little bit and get his mind right back into basketball. You talk about that 2022 playoff run. I even remember just watching him and seeing how he was locking up Luka Doncic and Jason Tatum on defense during that championship winning year. And like you said, it was really a completely different player than we're used to seeing. But with that completely different player, we also know that he's capable of it. He just needs to go into that right mind space and lock into it, which is something that with this kind of reconstructed and rebuilding Warriors team could emerge.
Absolutely. Steve White, by the way, in the chat writing that Didn't the Warriors lead the league in rebounding last year? Yes, they did. And it goes to show that that stat alone doesn't necessarily translate to success. And also Steve Kerr, we've talked about this before, but Sophia, while he brings that up, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Steve Kerr mentioned the fact that maybe the team's emphasis on rebounding hurt them in the grand scheme of things because of all the energy they expended focusing on rebound and on grabbing rebounds, and that might have forced them to shift attention away from other aspects of the game. It also might have forced them to expend energy that they would have needed on other aspects of the game, including shooting. What are your thoughts on the fact that the emphasis on rebounding might be toned down a bit this season because it didn't necessarily help the team last year?
You talk about energy. That definitely is one where you're feeding energy into one place, it's taking away from another. But as I had mentioned earlier, because the Warriors offense is so free flowing, they like to do so many things in transition. The more people that you're sending to get those rebounds, the less players there are available to leak out and then push and then create early offense, which is something is a little bit of a correlation on how rebounding could have potentially hurt them.
Yeah, totally. So don't expect, who knows, maybe that number will repeat itself, but the team is, at least from what Steve Kerr said, is not going to be as focused on rebounding this coming season. But we shall see. Wiggins is going to be a vitally important variable for this team this year. And let's hear from Andrew Wiggins. He was the first person to step up to the podium during Media Day yesterday at 9 a.m., insanely early. So here was Andrew Wiggins. I forgot what the topic was that he was talking about here. We'll find out all together. Here's Wiggs.
The All-Star game is going to be here next February. And obviously you were in the All-Star game a couple of years ago. How important would it be for you to try and, want to be on part of the team since it's coming to your place?
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. Obviously I'm a strive for that, work hard and do what I can to, hopefully get there. But just got to stay consistent, stay on it.
What do you think it's going to take to do it?
We got to win.
We don't see Wiggins smiling that often. That was a rarity. Your thoughts on what Wiggins just talked about right there?
Well, when you say he was the first person up at the podium at 9 a.m., it kind of gives a little bit of explanation behind his lack of energy in that comment. But we've never known Wiggins to be a super energetic and loud and out there player. So he's kind of just in his own personality. And again, like you said, it was really early in the morning. They were probably up hours before even they had to report. But the fact that he acknowledged winning is how you become an all-star at the end of the day. There aren't that many all-stars that we see that are plucked from losing teams. So hopefully with the mindset that, hey, just winning overall will help me and just the team, that will boost everyone.
And Bruce Morrow in the chat, his favorite word, mercurial. He was less mercurial. Die Post, real quick in the chat, asked, did Kerr talk about the rebounding thing on Media Day? No, this was back, I think, at the exit interview last year, or last NBA year. This was back in like April or whatever that was. No, this was like months ago when he said that. A couple more sound bites real fast, and then we're going to talk really quickly some WNBA because the playoffs are in full swing. Kevon Looney has been talking about shooting the three ball. Have you heard about this, Sophia?
Yeah, we actually talked about it, I think, on an earlier podcast.
Yes, we did. Yeah. And someone asked Kevon Looney about that. Like, are you actually focused on being a three-point shooter now? Let's hear from Kevon Looney, the man, the myth, the legend, a fan favorite, about his shot, his three-point shot. And Sophia, you mentioned on that the last time we had this discussion, you brought up eloquently, brilliantly, how Kevon Looney used to be a wing in college and in high school, and that's what the Warriors drafted him as. But he's made this wild transformation into an NBA center. Let's hear about three-point shooting, Kevon Looney.
Loon, what exactly did you do this summer to work on that three? Who were you working out with, and how many shots were you taking?
Okay, so that's Rick Bucher, by the way. So I'm still so fixated on who was having that conversation with Draymond. That's Rick Bucher, so we can cancel him out. Maybe it was Scott Osler. I just didn't see him at Media Day. Anyways, let's continue.
Can you get the details?
I was down at UCLA working out with my guy Jared Cook. Shot a lot more threes
probably 400, 500 every day. In the past, I would shoot some, but that wasn't my focus. I would just do light spotting. But after watching a lot of film and seeing where I potentially might get shots from, watching where Draymond might get a three from, or last year watching where Dario might get a three from, just watching those different spots, seeing how I would get there, and really focusing in on those type of shots. And I'm still not going to be out there hunting threes. Like, I'm not going to be out there like Clay or somebody, but I just want to be able to, when the time has come to space the floor, to be able to make an open shot, practicing getting threes out of rhythm. I'm not just getting to catch and shoot all the time. So learning how to do it off a pick and pop, doing off a ball reversal, doing when a guy's not holding you getting dare shots, just learning how to get in the flow. And I played a lot of 5-on-5, so just doing it out there as well. I wouldn't say so much technique. I always had a good foundation for the three, just about more of a mental thing of actually shooting it. It's you always can improve on your technique and on my base and my form and my follow through, small things like that. But for me, it's just more about just shooting it and shooting it with confidence.
500 threes a day. That means he's being serious about it, Sophia.
He is. And for people that also don't know, but back in high school, we talked about it. He was being compared to be the next Kevin Durant. So he has that skill set. You go look up his mixtape, and it's a different player than what we're seeing today. But he talks about the fact that he always has had a good foundation and mechanics for his shot. It's just about confidence and mentality. The fact that he's shooting that much, because at the end of the day, shooting just comes down to repetition and confidence. So the fact that he was really just working on that a lot and emphasizing that this summer, I feel like we could hopefully see some type of 3-point improvement this season from Kevon Looney.
Yeah, and there was another soundbite I'm not going to play, but Kevon also added that him being a 3-point shooter this year could just mean 1 3-point attempt a game, right? Like, so don't expect Kevon Looney to be jacking him up this season, unlike Wiggins, who, again, Steve Kerr said he wants 6 3-point attempts a game from him. Don't expect Kevon Looney to suddenly become a shooter, but he's worked on it. So if he does put it up, at least you won't be cringing watching that. 2 more to clips to wrap it up today. Let me see if I can find there's one from Stephen Curry I wanted to play as well. Real fast, I'll try to get to. But while I do that, for now, let's hear from Gary Payton II, a player that is almost forgotten. He was the life of the party at Media Day. I feel like that dude has as much energy off 1 hour sleep as he would getting 8-9 hours. Like, he's just pumped and ready to go always. Great energy from GP2. He had durability issues last year, which was a concern. So let's hear from GP2, a player who was fundamentally important for the title team, and we'll see what he does now. But here's Gary Payton II.
Gary, yes, I plan on being available this year. So let's go ahead and get that out the way now. Feeling good, healthy. Body's feeling great. No hiccups this summer, no nothing. Ready to go. So let's get those out the way now.
That is one way of controlling the narrative. So he just jumped right in before any questions asked and let everyone know. Sorry, I feel like I got something in my eye here. That he's going to be okay. Do you trust him, Sophia?
I love the confidence, and I love the fact that he just automatically spoke it into existence that he's going to be available this year. And the fact that he had no hiccups during the summer, which is usually when you're putting your body through a lot to prepare for the season, is a positive sign. So I'm very looking forward to seeing him back more consistently on this roster, because he was such a pivotal part of the Warriors offense, and especially defense.
Totally. 100% with you. He could be important, and he's such a good player. He just has to be on the court, right? That's going to be the important thing there. 2 more to go. 2 more players to go. I'm going to play 2 sound bites from Stephen Curry to wrap it up. But next up is Brandin Podziemski, the year 2 guard I mentioned. I sat down with him for about 10 minutes. I can't say everything we talked about. He's a funny guy. That's all I can say. And he's very personable. We had some fun discussions. Right when we started talking about his shooting, I was like, I literally was like, Brandon, you shot 43.8% from deep in college. You shot 58.8% from deep in April last year. I was about to get into like, what is he experiencing as a change in terms of his shooting? Like, what is starting to click there? And then they were like, "You're up next, Brandon. Photo time." And then he was gone. And then we didn't talk again. But here is Brandin Podziemski, a vitally important piece of this Warriors roster. Could be a starter. Let's hear from Pods, the man who is the youngest player on the Golden State Warriors.
Free agent additions or maybe one of your returning guys.
We could shoot. Yeah, we could shoot. And
who in particular is kind of?
I think you guys would be surprised, but Kyle Anderson. Jump shot looks a little different. Looks pretty good. Obviously, Buddy shoots a lot of threes. D'Anthony can shoot a lot of threes. Lindy Waters shoot a lot of threes. So I think from that standpoint, we're filled out with guys that can shoot. And then, the defensive part, I think we picked up in that area, whether that be me, D'Anthony, Kyle. We've all kind of took strides in that area.
Yeah, and his shooting is going to be important. I don't know if you mentioned Buddy Hield. That's another shooter on this team. Moses Moody's another shooter on this team. Sophia, your thoughts on Podziemski's comments?
I feel like the Warriors have never lacked in terms of having three-point shooters. That has been something that has been a core emphasis of their offense. So I'm not surprised there. It is encouraging to hear that it sounds like they improved and that Podziemski is positive about their ability to shoot the three ball. But the fact that he also mentioned everyone's defense, again, is another thing that really excites me. He talked about himself and, especially last year, how he said he wanted to make those improvements on the defensive end. So just having that mindset, I love to hear, as well as the three-point shooting.
Sorry, I was muted. Absolutely. 100% with you. And let's hope we see that growth in Podziemski. Are there any statistical goals you want to see him aspire to? Meaning he averaged 9 points and change last year as a scorer. I'd like to see that go up to like 15. I'd like to see his assist numbers go up. I think his rebounding numbers were fine. That part of his game is solidified. What do you aspire or what do you hope to see from Podziemski in year two?
Especially, we mentioned with D'Anthony Melton and even with Gary Payton being more available, that takes a little bit of the point guard role off of Podziemski, so he can play a little bit more off ball, more of the two position, which is what he's more so used to, in which, like you, I would like to see those points per game number go up around 15. Without the ball handling, he could even get his rebounding numbers up more, which, we talked about earlier. Also, we don't know if that's the key for the Warriors, but he was a very, very good rebounder in college. And if it's something where he gets the board because he does possess those ball handling skills, he can start the break and get the Warriors into early offense as well.
Great analysis. And wrapping it up, I got two clips from Stephen Curry from Media Day today. Oh, I know we're running late. I just saw the clock. I'm sorry, Sophia. We'll go fast through this. I'll save the one. There was two clips. One I will not play just because it doesn't pertain to Warriors basketball specifically, but my friend Ryan Leong, NBC News reporter, he's at almost all of these Warriors games and press conferences. He asked Steph a great question about the city of Oakland losing the Oakland A's and the fact that Oakland now has 0 professional sports franchises. That clip's available online. You can find it. The last one that I'm going to play today will be Stephen Curry talking about the same thing, same vein of Draymond Green's theme, which is that this team reminds him and Draymond a lot of the 2022 version, a deep team. They're covering all their bases in terms of talent. So here's Steph talking about the roster now versus 2022.
I was in there earlier. He said that in some ways the new additions, the new vets coming in is somewhat reminiscent of 3 years ago when Otto and Gary and Nemanja came in. Do you see similarities there? And what do you think of the roster as it is right now?
Yeah, very similar for sure. That's a good comparison. Guys that have been around the league in different situations and I think fit the style that we try to play, even though we do need to evolve and have a different look on offense and defense. We've had 2 years of kind of some stagnant ball at times, but still enough that, we're convinced that we can be a good team. Obviously injuries aside, you want to have everybody available, but I think pieces fit, and to your point, a good balance of youth and veteran presence that, can hopefully get us off to a good start. And the good news is like, I'm coming into this training camp with an open mind of, how we're supposed to play. I know there's a warrior mentality and culture of how we do things. There's a system that we ran for, a decade plus that has worked. Doesn't necessarily mean that's how this team needs to play. We have to have, kind of antennas up on and an openness to, accept what this team's strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and kind of lean into those. And that's including our youth, because we need them to play at an extremely high level for us to be the team we want to be.
And Steph, again, in person, just very special human being. Our species has not seen someone like him on this planet, maybe ever. It's just special. There's nothing else I could say about him. He's just a good dude. We chatted for a very brief moment yesterday. He's just awesome. Sophia, your thoughts on Steph, what he just said, and Stephen Curry in general.
I like how he touched upon the fact that the Warriors do need to evolve. I'm sure everyone has heard this saying. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I feel like for the Warriors, in order to be successful, especially after the last 2 years, they need to switch it up a little bit. I see that happening with this roster. And like you said, it's all about keeping an open mind, but whoever just comes to play and how they play to the best of their abilities. Like you mentioned, they have the young players that just need to show up and show out. They have the experienced veterans that need to play into their roles and provide their wisdom and IQ and knowledge. It just is a matter of it all coming together and everyone honestly staying healthy and being able to stay on the court, especially for key players like Steph, like Draymond.
Totally. And when I say he's special, I'm not comparing him to like all-time, amazing human beings in human history like Gandhi, Mother Teresa, but he's special in the set. Like, I'll put it to you in this perspective. We've been hearing Steph talk for 14, 15 years. Have you ever heard a dumb thing out of his mouth? I mean, I'm sure you can nitpick and find something. He's smart. His energy is something else. Like, you rarely, if ever, see him winded or tired. His positivity is contagious, if not, it's infectious. He's just a high quality dude. I know we're talking sports here. I get it. I have perspective. I know. But he's just a very special human being. Finishing up, we're going to talk WNBA for just a few moments. And then Sophia, I know you got to run. The series, I feel like, of the postseason is Las Vegas Aces versus New York Liberty. They're about to tip off as we're recording this live on October 1st. It's 4:23 p.m. They're starting in moments. The Liberty won game one. The Aces are the reigning champions. What's your thoughts on game two and that series as a whole?
The series as a whole, I don't see Vegas being able to beat the Liberty with how well the Liberty are playing right now. Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu are just getting their way on offense. They're able to pick apart the Aces defense, and Jonquel Jones has been doing a good job on the reigning unanimous MVP, Asia Wilson. And since this was the finals matchup last year, the Liberty are coming in with an extra motivation to really shut down this series and get to the finals and get their team the chip, because they've been the best team in the WNBA so far with the #1 record.
I found out, by the way, why the Connecticut Sun are called the Sun. You mentioned that they were in Florida and they moved. They were formerly in Orlando. The team there was affiliated with the Orlando Magic, and then that split up. And they moved to Connecticut, and they play at a casino called, I think, the Mohegan Sun. And that's where the name comes from. It's almost like a sponsorship thing. With that said, Connecticut pulled off, I think, is an upset in game one, defeating the Minnesota Lynx in Mini. What are your thoughts on game two of that series, which follows the Aces and the Liberty tonight?
I don't even know if I'd call it an upset this series. I do think it will go to 5 games. Both teams are just playing really, really well right now. For Connecticut, their defense has been their calling card. It's just they've been stifling the Minnesota Lynx, especially Nafisa Collier. She's the leading scorer for the Lynx as well, was finished second in MVP voting this past year. And for the Connecticut Sun, they were able to actually add Marina Mabry post-Olympic break, who I think has been one of their most impactful players in this postseason because of what she's been able to contribute on the offensive end, especially, as well as her three-point shooting. She's been able to hit some insanely clutch shots. But the Connecticut Sun, their defense, I don't see Nafisa Collier having an off night like she did last game. So I do think that this series will head back to Connecticut 1-1.
Yeah, and the Liberty are favored by 4.5 over the Aces in the first game. Minnesota favored by 4.5 in the second game over Connecticut. Sophia, when we meet again next week, the Warriors will have played their first preseason game. It's Saturday, October 5th, Warriors-Clippers. Are you pumped for that? Are you pumped for basketball coming back?
I am excited. It'll be interesting to see, especially against the Clippers. It'll be interesting to see kind of what both teams are saying preseason, not all the time, tells us what we need to know, but just to see certain players on our screens again is always a nice moment.
Absolutely. It really is. I can't wait. So we'll be back at this tomorrow. Paulie Max joining the program, my old friend. Sophia, you and I do this every week. The WNBA stuff, I feel like when next May and June rolls around, it's gonna be a whole different story compared to how we were doing it this year, where we jumped in late. It's a new program. We're building it. We're going to be established. So when the NBA season ends next year, it's just going to keep rolling because the WNBA starts right when the NBA ends. And I'm looking way ahead right now. Sophia, I know you got to go. I've kept you way longer than we were supposed to talk. Any final words? Any final thoughts? Anything you want to throw in there before we call it a wrap?
No, just like you said, Liberty Aces is about to tip off. And then after that is Lynx and Sun and semifinals of the WNBA playoffs on ESPN. So make sure to go and check it out.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to especially the audience. Again, we don't exist without you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Sophia, thank you. As always, follow Sophia Jones on Twitter at @SophiaJones_2. She joins me every week to talk Warriors and Valkyrie, even though there's nothing going on with the Valkyrie. Oh, wait. There's one thing with the Valkyrie that's going on. I almost forgot. I know you got to go. We won't get into this. I'm not gonna ask you to name all the players. We'll save this for next week. But the news dropped that the Valkyrie expansion draft, I believe they set a date for that. Can you enlighten the audience on the expansion news regarding the Valkyrie?
Yeah, so the expansion draft is going to be on December 6th on ESPN. A little synopsis about how it will work is each of the WNBA teams can protect up to 6 players on their roster, and then the Valkyries will select from a designated pool of available players from those 12 current teams. And an interesting thing also is that the Valkyries can actually make pre-expansion draft trades. So that includes deals to pick specific players and then trade them to different teams. So that's something that makes it interesting, as well as they can select one 2024 unrestricted free agent to join the roster. So it should be chaotic, to say the least, and it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, especially with the WNBA playoffs now going to come to an end soon, and just free agency as a whole.
When we host our program next week, when we resume V for Valkyrie, Sophia, if you don't mind, present a list of all the potential players who may be available for that expansion draft. Information has not been released yet regarding the Valkyries draft position. I think we're playing a waiting game on that. I don't think there's any doubt that Paige Beckers is the ideal player coming out of the draft for Golden State to get started with. But yeah, we'll touch on that and so much more next week. Die post in the chat asking if the game versus the Clippers is going to be at Intuit Dome. No, it's going to be in Hawaii, where the Warriors currently are right now, drinking some Mai Tais, shooting basketballs, just having the time of their life. Maybe even getting some surfing in. Who knows? Until then, we'll be back at this soon. Paulie Mack joins me tomorrow. Sophia Jones joins me every week for V for Valkyrie. Always a pleasure. Sophia, thank you. Thank you to everyone. Bye.